So let's say you have, there's some space here. We have an idea as a business. Let's say I'm Starbucks. I want to create, a new kind of Starbucks somewhere in a neighborhood in Vienna. So that's the idea, and I want to turn that obviously into a real, business opportunity. And I put numbers on that. Usually I write something like a business plan, and I'll present the numbers, and then we'll execute or we won't. So we're basically facing here an execution problem. Let's see if I can make this work. To go from idea to a real business, okay? And I think we do that pretty well in most companies, and this is typically exploitation. Now, let's look at exploration. So exploration is a little bit different in the sense that, we start out with an idea. Okay, we have an idea. But the difference here is the idea might be unproven. Now the problem is, for the exploration side, we actually apply exactly the same processes. We'll say we want to go from idea to business. Now anybody who's done entrepreneurship or innovation knows that the reality of going from idea to real business, when you're really doing something new, like Amazon Web Services, it looks actually more like this. You advance, you regress, customers say they're not interested in what you're doing, management might want to cut the funding, you figure out how to get it. Okay, so eventually, with all the mistakes you make, you figure out how to go from idea to business. Who of you has lived this kind of adventure, innovation, entrepreneurship adventure from idea to business, and thinks it looks messy like that? Hands up if that's the case, okay? Mm-hmm. Who of you has written a business plan to kind of orchestrate that mess? Okay? So that's the best way to waste your time. Because basically, you're applying the tools of execution, which you have over here. Business plan is a planning exercise. You plan how to execute a proven idea. Over here, we actually have a search problem, okay? A search problem. We need to search the right value propositions and the right business models, and we do that, as Gary said, with experiments. And inevitably, we'll get some stuff wrong, probably 90% if it's really a revolutionary idea, but it's okay. Because we can, if we do it cheaply, we can learn from experiments and we can change. So the most important thing is you first, I hope this remains clear, you first need to admit what's at its maximum when you start a search. Its uncertainty is very high and risk is very high. What does that mean? You need to admit in a large organization that you actually have no clue what's going to work. That sounds like career suicide. Telling everybody, you don't know if this idea is going to work or not. That's career suicide. By the way, innovation today is actually career suicide in most companies, right? What's your task as an entrepreneur in a large company? It's to admit that you have no clue, but that you have a process to figure out what's going to work. So basically, your task as an entrepreneur and as a corporate entrepreneur, same thing, is to decrease uncertainty and risk. Now, how do you do that? You do that with small experiments first. So eventually, with more and more experiments, you continuously reduce, by investing a little bit more, the more you continuously reduce risk and uncertainty. Now, this is what I think the best companies are trying to do. So typically Amazon, that's why I chose it as an example, is trying to do that. But they actually do something here which is important. They admit that for exploration, we need a completely different toolbox. Different processes, different incentive systems, a different culture than over here on the exploitation side. And the big mistake we're often, doing in most companies is that we apply the tools of exploitation and the measurement of exploitation and the processes and the culture of exploitation to exploration. And that usually kills exploration.